We're here to idea you, to fire up your curiosity and connect you with the people and ideas that shape our world. Watch, listen, understand, connect, and create. Let's move the human story forward together.
Hello and welcome to The Poetry of Science, a podcast which provides insight into new scientific research via the medium of poetry. I'm your host, Dr. Sam Illingworth, and each week I'll be introducing you to some of the latest scientific findings and sharing a selection of science-themed poetry. After all, we could all do with a little bit more poetry in our lives. In this episode, I'll be exploring new research which has looked to neutron stars to reduce nuclear waste. In the river of stars, waves crash and burn, a dance of particles unseen, unfelt, unknown. Neutrons like murmurs collide in the night, absorbing the call to shift, transform, assume a new weight, not decay but growth, reversing the flow to dampen a storm, from the heart of a star to the soul of a world. This poem is inspired by recent research published in the journal Physics Letters B, where scientists have developed a new technique to make nuclear waste safer by transforming it into stable elements, inspired by neutron star observations, promising advancements in clean energy and waste management. A significant challenge in the adoption of nuclear energy is the management of nuclear waste, which remains radioactive and hazardous for extremely long periods. Transforming these waste products into more stable forms is an ongoing scientific challenge, as current methods to achieve this are not yet practical for widespread application. Scientists have now advanced a technique inspired by insights from observing gravitational waves emanating from merging neutron stars to make nuclear waste safer by adding neutrons to unstable elements, a process known as transmutation, essentially the reverse of nuclear decay. This transforms the waste into safer, heavier versions of itself. While previously hard to measure accurately, researchers can now estimate transmutation by observing how much selenium, a nuclear waste byproduct, does not change when bombarded with neutrons. Despite not seeing transmutation directly, their method accurately infers it, paving the way for cleaner nuclear energy. The applications of this discovery are considerable, potentially revolutionising nuclear waste treatment facilities, as well as providing insights into the formation of heavy elements within the cosmos. Now that you've heard the science, let me read the poem to you again. In the river of stars, waves crash and burn, a dance of particles unseen, unfelt, unknown. Neutrons like murmurs collide in the night, absorbing the call to shift, transform, assume a new weight, not decay but growth, reversing the flow to dampen a storm, from the heart of a star to the soul of a world. In this section of the podcast, I'd like to share a poem written by another poet on a topic related to the science that has been discussed so far. In this episode, I'll be reading Near the Desert Site Tests, Palm Desert, California, by Sherrod Santos. Sherrod Santos is an American poet, essayist, and educator born in 1948. His varied upbringing across the US and Europe informed his rich poetic voice. Santos's acclaimed collections like The Pilot Star Elegies, published in 1999, and Square Inch Hours, published in 2007, explore historical and personal narratives, earning him honours including the Theodore Roethke Prize and National Book Award nominations. Santos continues to contribute to academia and society, teaching at the University of Missouri and engaging in outreach for the homeless. Near the Desert Site Tests, Palm Desert, California, by Sherrod Santos. Unlike almost everything else just surviving here in summer, poison flowers flourish in this sweltering heat, tangling like blown litter in fences around the trailer parks and motel pools, and turning the islands pinkish white between divided lanes of freeway, where all day long against the burnished hubbub of U-Haul trucks and automobiles, off-the-road vehicles and campers, the oleander shakes its brightly polished pocket knives as at the motorcade of some ambassador hurrying through a village of the poor. And every day by late afternoon the overwatered lawns around the shopping malls still burn off brown, their pampered opulence upbraided by the palm's insomniac vision of one ineffable apocalyptic noon. But the smell is somehow sweeter than that makes you think, a dry lemon sweetness, as if somewhere nearby wild verbena has been forced to leaf by a match held up to each bud, and the silo skyscraper Holiday Inn at the famous resort, where the horizon ends, could almost be that match, the way the heat sloughs it off like afterburn. And yet, because of the way the sun intensifies everything, one always has the feeling there is much less here than meets the eye. The halicon blink of a shard of glass, a Learjet wafted into vapour out on the tarmac's run, the way common quartz stone gives off heat which seems to come from inside itself and not, in fact, from that more than imaginably nuclear sun which every morning starts up so illusionless, and every evening slow dissolves on the blue and otherwise planetary hills, like a Valium breaking up on the tongue. Thank you for listening to the Poetry of Science.
Thank you very much for being with us for this episode of the Idea Me Show. Idea Me is a global platform. Our mission is to move the human story forward by sharing knowledge of the future. You can find us on all major audio networks at www.radioideame.com, on YouTube and Vimeo. Please subscribe.